Hello guys, welcome back to another video, and it is week 9 of college football, and there's a lot of good games to look at, so let's get right into it with our first game. 6 Oklahoma at Kansas. Jalen Daniels, a great quarterback for them. This is going to be at home for Kansas. Kansas is getting a bigger crowd season after season, and they're playing Oklahoma, who's ranked number 6. I don't think anybody would have thought that they would be this good at the beginning of the season. Had a little scare there last week to UCF, but they got the win. This one's on the road versus Kansas. I have undefeated Oklahoma staying undefeated, getting the win 38-27 OU. Next game, we got Indiana and Penn State. Penn State lost last week to Ohio State 20-12. A tough game for them. I feel like Penn State kind of underperformed on offense. I know it's hard to play at Ohio State, but that was just a game that was kind of disappointing for them. This time it is at home versus Indiana, who hasn't been that impressive. I have Penn State 27-17 on top. Next game, we got Florida State at Wake Forest. 2 ACC teams trying to battle it out right here. Wake Forest going for an upset. They're capable of doing it. I just don't really think it will happen. Florida State was in a tight game last week versus Duke, but towards the end of the game, they broke away. They got the win. They're fine. I have them getting the win 37-22 Florida State. Next game, we got 8 Oregon at 13 Utah. Utah beat USC last week 34-32. A heck of a game for them as they got the win. And this is versus Oregon. Oregon only has 1 loss this season so far. It was versus Washington, only lost by a field goal. This is a really tough game. It could go either way. Based off of last week for Utah beating USC, I think that was very impressive from them. I have them keeping their winning streak alive, 37-34, Utah on top. Next game, we got Georgia at Oregon. It's a neutral site game versus Florida. This is one of the 3 neutral site games in college football. It is a rivalry game. And Georgia, their defense hasn't been really that impressive compared to the last few years. And Georgia's offense, it's pretty good. It's been probably better than their first national championship year, but not as good as last year. It's still a good offense with them, but Brock Bowers' first game being out with just starting, not in the game. He will not be there. He'll be on the sideline probably, but not in the game, which is very crucial. Georgia, their defense, this is probably the biggest part of the game. Florida, they're not afraid to throw the ball to Trevor Etienne, their running back, and they can pass it too. They're not afraid to overload you on either side versus Georgia's zone defense, which Georgia is really good at. They're not afraid to do that. They're going to try to let it rip. And to Ricky Pearsall, their great receiver, their number 1 receiver. If this is a game versus kind of like they played versus Kentucky, they made Devin Leary a little nervous with Devin Leary's first time playing Georgia. This is Florida's quarterback first time playing Georgia, so could be kind of like that. I have Florida losing in this game. Georgia taking over 41-19, Dogs on top. Next game, we got Duke at Louisville. Louisville ranked number 18, Duke number 20. 2 very, very similar and solid teams. Louisville beat Notre Dame. A heck of a game, and they won that game, a great game. And Duke, they hung around with Florida State last week. It was pretty impressive, just couldn't come out with a win, which is really a tough task for them. I have Louisville getting a win 24-23 at home. Next game, we got Tennessee and Kentucky. These are 2 teams that just have filled in the blank this season. Kentucky, I don't think they can hang around with really solid teams like Missouri and Georgia. They got a tough opponent this week versus Tennessee. And Tennessee, they played them last week, took the L on the road actually. It was a tough game for them. I don't know if they're going to be able to bounce back from this one, especially on the road again. But this is Kentucky, and we know how Kentucky is. They're pretty good at choking. So I have Tennessee 34-27. Their offense getting back at it versus Kentucky's defense, giving Kentucky a hard time. It'll still be a close game, but I have Tennessee getting the win. Next game, 5 Washington at Stanford. You might think, oh, Washington, this is going to be a blowout. This is easy. Washington did not have a great week last week. And this is at Stanford. Stanford beat Colorado. This is not an easy task, and it's a night game. But Washington and their offense is pretty good. Michael Penix Jr., Romeo Odunze. This is a good team. They keep their undefeated streak alive with this game. On the road, I have them getting the win 29-17. Not exactly a blowout that everybody's expecting, but I have them getting the win. Next game, we got Vanderbilt at Ole Miss. Ole Miss beat Auburn last week, and it was an away game. It was a very tough game. It's hard to play at Jordan-Hare Stadium, and they got it done. It was not like it was an easy game, but it wasn't like Ole Miss played bad. It's tough to play at Auburn. That's just how it is. And this time, it's at home, and they're playing Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt somehow kind of stuck around with Georgia. So this could get a little interesting. But I have Ole Miss taking over 38-21. I have the Land Sharks getting the win. Next game, we have 3 Ohio State at Wisconsin. Wisconsin, they have a really great running back, and they're not afraid to run the ball on them, which they definitely can at home. This isn't a walk in the park for Ohio State. Their offense had trouble getting going last week versus Penn State. They got to get going this week. I have them getting the win on the road, though. 33-14 Ohio State. Next game, we have Colorado, Coach Prime, Shedeur Sanders at UCLA. UCLA is ranked number 23. They're no team you should joke around with, especially on the road playing USC. UCLA is very tough, and losing Dorian Thompson-Robinson and Zach Charbonnet to the NFL, this is a new team for them that they're getting used to every single game of the season. Versus Colorado, Travis Hunter, Shedeur Sanders, Coach Prime. We all know the story on them. This is going to be at UCLA. Could go either way, but with Colorado's tough schedule, I'm going to have 34-23 as that tough schedule keeps going. UCLA getting the win 34-23. Next game, we have North Carolina at Georgia Tech. And North Carolina, they got upset last week to Virginia. And that makes me want to put Georgia Tech getting the win. And this is at Georgia Tech. Last game it was at North Carolina, and Virginia still somehow beat them. They cannot let that happen. Georgia Tech isn't the best team, but they did beat Miami. And somehow, they didn't kneel the ball. Miami didn't kneel the ball. They ran it. They fumbled. Georgia Tech scored a touchdown. And this is a team to joke around with, especially on the road, in a tough atmosphere, which is going to be at a night game. It's not, Georgia Tech doesn't have the best fan base or anything, but still, any night game could be a problem. And I have North Carolina barely getting the win, 27-23. Tar Heels getting the win. Next game, we got South Carolina at Texas A&M. Texas A&M, they had a good year so far. It's been better than last year. They're doing pretty good, I'll say, as this is for South Carolina. South Carolina, they lost to Tennessee in a tough game. Spencer Rattler did not play that good. At the beginning of the season, he looked great. And when he plays tough teams, it gets really, really hard for him, especially in tough environments, which is going to be one versus Texas A&M, which you got to watch out for. I have Texas A&M getting the win 30-27. I have them getting the win with a great game for the Aggies. Our last game, we have Mississippi State at Auburn. Auburn, they can run it with Robbie Ashford if they need to, but their starter, Peyton Thorne, knows how to throw the ball, but they can also run it. with Robbie Ashford, which they're not afraid to use at all, especially versus a team like Mississippi State where they can get them uncomfortable. It could get ugly very easily. And this is also at Auburn. They had a game versus Ole Miss, couldn't quite get that. And they also had a game versus Georgia, couldn't quite get that, but an impressive game in both of those games for the. Can they close this one out? This one's versus Mississippi State, a division rival. I have the Auburn Tigers winning by a field goal in a lower scoring game, 22-19. Auburn getting the win. Thank you guys for watching my Week 9 college football predictions. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you guys in the next one.